To discuss this further, now I'm going to take a global perspective of what investors or any keen eye would be looking for in this upcoming Union Budget 2026. Joining me is Robert Kep, Director, Asia Pacific Geoeconomics and Business Initiative, Chapman University. Robert, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks so much for joining us here again. Coming in from an international perspective, from your lens, coming in from Los Angeles, what would you like to see, or announcements that you'll be keeping a keen eye on and ear on, just to understand what it would perhaps encourage more investment in the Indian market, or more encouragement towards looking at the Indian market for an investor overseas?
So I think a lot of what the investment community and in general the foreign economic community looks for in India is kind of steady as she goes approach, which I think, the Modi government has been very well received. And the finance minister's previous budgets, hit those correct notes. I would say one of the main things is probably just more efficiency in terms of tax and regulation. That's always been the number one complaint you hear typically from foreign investors. And if there's more progress made on that, and then, as long as the budget isn't doing anything too outlandish, which I don't expect it will, as you just mentioned previously, India's got this really enviable growth, and that's what people want to see just continue. And as long as there's nothing to upset that, it should be in good shape.
All right, enviable growth, I'll keep that in mind. But then definitely it's something that in India, it's we're all looking forward to it and to only see that number grow. But at the same time, Robert, do you see any operational barriers impeding a path towards looking towards India? And I'm again taking a perspective from your lens, from the international lens.
Yeah. So, the number one thing, obviously, that's upset India's relations primarily with the U.S., but it's also an underlying tension with the EU, although India deserves great credit, as does the EU, for coming together recently and concluding a new trade deal, and that's Russia. Okay, and I know this is sensitive. I know there's a lot of historical precedents with India-Russia ties and so forth, but that really isn't. And I'm not making any excuses, by the way, for the U.S. president. He is not easy to gauge, and there are probably other factors at play in his, atrociously high 50% tariff rate against Indian goods. But his explained reason is Russian oil. And I think if India can navigate through that from a geopolitical perspective, that would be the number one thing that could really help bring back positive U.S.-India ties and could really make sure the new EU-India deal goes through smoothly and can just get supercharged, because Europe would love to be doing more with India, does not want to do more with China. It's being shunned by the U.S., and its biggest threat, though, is Russia. So if you can take Russia out of the picture, a lot of good things can happen between India and the West.
I hear your point, Robert. Perhaps similar sentiments arise here in India when you see Asim Munir and Shehbaz Sharif standing time and again in the US, in the White House. But as of now, when I say an international lens, I'd like you to also bring in perspectives from the rest of the world and not just from the US. I understand you're from Los Angeles, but, India is waking up to the fact that FTAs are being done with the UK, already being done with the EU. Yeah. So there is more to the West than the US. Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely. No, and so you've got historical legacy there with the UK. The UK, likewise. Look, in a certain sense, the big opportunity and taking a truly global perspective here is outside the US, right? But some of the problems are the same. So Russia is a problem for everyone in Europe, the EU specifically, Britain also, and even the US. But assuming the US has its own issues, and you want to just focus on that part of the world, managing tensions there would help. Now, at the same time, you mentioned an even broader global perspective. I would say there's huge opportunities with Northeast Asia, specifically Japan and South Korea, because they're also being pushed away by China. China's gotten very aggressive with Japan. And Japan, they coined the term free and open Indo-Pacific. And they specifically included Indo in the term because it used to be just called Asia Pacific. And that goes back to the time of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. His mentee, as it were, Takaichi Sakai, is now prime minister. So there's a lot of kind of rhyming with history. And I know Japan would love to do more with India, and that is a partner that could, help bring a lot of advances that India wants to make in terms of technology, for example.
That was Robert Kep joining us from Los Angeles. Robert, I must say, I always, enjoy our candid and respectful conversations. You don't hold back, neither do I. Always a pleasure speaking with you. Would like to have you on the broadcast again.
Thanks. Appreciate it.